Leeds lens for your Leeds United news show. And we've got a bit to get into this evening. We're going to talk all about what Jayden Bogle's been saying about the big issue at Leeds United at this moment in time. And I also want to do a bit of a look ahead to the summer transfer window as well. We found out last week, of course, that Leeds United apparently have 100 million to spend. So I want to look at sort of what Leeds United could do in the summer and maybe some outgoing that we could do to raise some funds on top of that 100 million. And maybe then, yeah, what we should target maybe in the summer to look at really and how we could improve this team. So that's what I want to do today. Also, obviously, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help the channel. Obviously, it's a great time, I think, to be a Leeds United fan at this moment. So if you could enjoy the positivity and drop a like and subscribe, all that good stuff does myself. Obviously, I'm trying to hit 2,000 subscribers as well. We're getting closer, so if you could help by doing that too, that would be brilliant. Anyway, let's start with the Jayden Bogle comments. So the Jayden Bogle comments I want to bring up are all about these dropping back comments. And basically, a question was proposed to him at the weekend, talking about Leeds United sort of dropping back too much, going into too much of a defensive shape, and is that costing Leeds United to drop too many points? And Bogle basically responding saying, look, this might be a problem for Leeds United, and basically this is something that he's going to have to look at, and the club are going to have to look at, and is this the correct strategy for Leeds United? And it's sort of, look, that comment is what it is. But it sort of opens up a broader debate of why this is happening, why Leeds are dropping so many points late on, why Leeds United seem to be going in such a defensive shape. And obviously, we remember that game against Everton, who are actually playing right now against Man United, where Leeds United went too defensive. I think we dropped too deep. And obviously, we conceded the goal right at the end. And this has happened a few times this season. Obviously, the Everton one's a perfect example because I feel like it started earlier. But I can also remember Bournemouth at home right at the start of the season. I can remember Fulham at home, away from home, right at the start of the season as well, where for me, we sat in too deep. And what's causing this and what's causing Leeds United to be so bad? Because we also saw over the weekend that obviously, I think Leeds United have now conceded 14 goals in the last 15 minutes of football matches in the Premier League this season, which is more than any other team. It's a graphic that sort of match of the day did. And I think instantaneously, I can see the comments already because I've seen them when this in games when this has happened and what we said in the post match. And I think instantaneously everyone will go, manager substitutions, manager not changing it quick enough. And we can explore the path of doing that, but I feel like we've done that enough times now. And there has to be other call-ins as to why this is happening other than just the manager. And I think we're all sort of can understand that as well. I would imagine we can all understand that. And for me, I think one thing that we are missing with this whole conversation with Leeds United at the moment and with the whole conversation about dropping back and dropping points too late is something very obvious. I think it can boil a bit down to look at our bench. Look at our bench. For example, look at the benches that teams have brought on against us in them games that has changed the games. Look at when Bournemouth brought on Krupi, someone of elite quality Krupi who scored the goal right at the end. When you look yesterday and they brought on Tammy Abraham, they brought on Ross Barkley, they brought on another lad as well who I can't remember, who has, again, made a huge impact on the game. And you look at these players that these clubs are bringing on, and Leeds United just don't have that. And that's not a problem, by the way. That ain't a problem because we know Leeds United's going to have a weaker bench than these teams because we're not yet an established Premier League team. We're a newly promoted club. I know everyone says newly promoted and gets thrown around, and actually we've been in a year, sort of in the league for nearly a year now. But the point is, we haven't had the spend on our team that other clubs at this division have, and we know that for a fact because the problem has been that every time teams have come up, them teams have gone straight back down over the last 6 teams that have been promoted before this season. So these teams that we're coming up against not only have really good starting 11s, which I think we've shown that we can compete with, I think the problem then goes further. Then they have a bench that we then can't compete with. And I think when we bring on our substitutions and they bring on their substitutions, we see the impact. And now you can say that maybe Daniel Farke doesn't react quick enough to the things. But I said we're trying to, if we've looked at that to death. We talk about it literally in every single thing. So I just wanted to look at it from another angle. And I do think we are missing a point when we don't discuss level of benches. And that's why it brought in the conversation about the summer transfer window, which I want to get onto later in the show, because I think when you're looking at next season and what Leeds United should be striving for next season, well, next season, of course, we're in the summer, you'd be hoping that you improve your first team. And if you improve your first team, hopefully then players would then, some of the first teamers that will then drop to the bench, and therefore your bench is then stronger than it is this year, because the people who are on the bench this year either get sold or they drop into the reserves, and they probably truthfully, they probably get sold. And that is what the progression of Leeds United is. And when we're talking about what Leeds United can do in the summer, that is what it will be. Get new players in the first team, which allows the starters to go to the bench players and then bench players to be sold. And that is the progression of Leeds United. But I do feel like a lot of the reason why this is happening is because our bench just is still not at the level of a lot of these Premier League teams. Whereas last season, in the contrary, I think we had the most goals of any team with players off the bench. And that was because, fundamentally, we had a better bench than everybody else. So when we brought players off the bench, they made a huge impact. And that's one point of it. And for me, the other point of it is game state. Now, what is game state? Well, game state is sometimes with the team that is in control, maybe at home, in the example of the Aston Villa game state will naturally dictate how a game goes based on preconceptions of the game. So when we're playing Aston Villa away, for example, we are always going to be defending late on in the game to try hold out. And people go, why is that? Well, the reason that is because Villa are naturally going to be tracing the game, naturally going to be taking more risks, pressing us in more, squeezing the game more, and yet therefore leaving an option for the counter-attack. But Leeds United, because of that, are going to be holding what they want. And we've seen this, and this has been the thing in football since I can remember watching football, even last year with Leeds in the Championship. If a team, say QPR, came to Leeds United last year, and it was the 70th minute, who'd have the ball, in your opinion? Probably Leeds United, because we'd be chasing the game and trying to get the goal. And that's exactly what Villa are to us this year. And that, again, is why Leeds United concede these goals. So I've never felt it's as simple as Daniel Farke. I've never felt it's as simple as just game state. It's a measure of all these things in comparison, because there has been times this year, in my opinion, the Aston Villa in the first game especially, when at half-time, Unai Emery did a few changes, changed the game, Daniel Farke didn't react quick enough, and instantly scored off the break, and then obviously Rodgers went on and they went to win the game. And you can look at that and go, well, Daniel Farke should have been quicker in his substitutions, should have corrected the problem, and therefore should have been therefore we might have got a better outcome. But you've also got to understand that where we are as a football club, and that we are a new promoted team, and that we managed to do this to other teams last year, but now they're doing it to us because of the situation we're in. So yeah, that's kind of what I feel. So I understand what Jayden Bogle's saying, and I think they appreciate it. And at times, I do think there's other resulting factors in this, because for me, I've said this before, but I do think the likes of an Ethan Ampadu, who's the captain of the team, is one of the worst players for dropping deep and dropping in games. I think he's one of the worst of it. And when your captain's doing that, I do think that is part of the team ethos then, that they go into that shape. And I think when you've seen Ethan Ampadu not do that as badly, which I don't think you did actually at the weekend against Villa, I think you see a better shape from Leeds United. And I really do put a lot of emphasis on Ethan Ampadu as the captain, to show the rest of the players how we should be expected to play and how we should approach in later stages of games. And I do think that's started to improve. And hopefully, again, next season, we've got better players, etc., and we're bringing better players off the bench. All this can combine. Daniel Farke should make better subs there. And again, if he doesn't make better subs next season, and we are still in the Premier League and we have spent well, then we can look at it and go, well, look, he's got all these fantastic players that he's not using properly, and he should be bringing them on. But I don't think we're quite at that stage yet, because people are telling me at the weekend that Tanaka and sort of Gnonto, Tanaka and sort of Dan James were going to revolutionise the game. And truthfully, I've watched them a few weeks ago, and I don't think that they would have done, personally. And I don't actually think a lot of people think that they would have done. I just think it's something that we need to come up with some idea, because this didn't work, so maybe this would. But it doesn't mean that it would have done, if that makes sense. Anyway, if we look at the future plans then, when we're talking about this, what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, that means that some tricky conversations are going to have to happen, because I think the obvious player in the summer that's going to have to probably move on is Joel Pro. I think this is an obvious one now. I really do. I think the fact that he didn't actually even start against Birmingham in the Cup is a full indication as to where we're going with this transfer. He will leave the football club in the summer if Leeds United is still a Premier League club next season. I have no doubt about it at all. And I think unless of course we have loads of injuries at the back end of the season in the forward areas, and then he gets his chance and takes it. But truthfully, he's going to leave in the summer. So he's the first one. So what does that raise you? Maybe £10 million. He's got a year left in his deal, something like that. So then you've got £110 million in the kitty. Then you're looking at maybe the two that probably are going to divide the fan base more are probably Tanaka and Gnonto. I think they're the next two that you look at, because they're players that are on the bench this moment in time, not massively making a difference, in my opinion. As I said, when they've had the chances, for me, they haven't delivered enough. Yes, they were good in the Derby away game. Very good, both of them. We've praised them on the channel. But I don't think we've seen a progression of games from them two, particularly Gnonto probably, of good enough performances. At times he's come on and made a difference, and Brentford away did. But then at times he had Sunderland away performances when he came on and did nothing. And again, you can talk about the amount of game time he's had, but you only get a certain amount of chances. This is the Premier League football. So Gnonto, I think you're looking at him moving on, and I think Tanaka's probably another one that again you might be looking at maybe having to move on at some point this in the summer, really. And then of course you're looking at, well, if you can move them two on, maybe you get, I don't know, 30 million combined for them. Add pro 40 million. All of a sudden you've got 140 million to spend there. And then I think we've got certain positions in the team that you need aggressing. I think you're looking at a new goalkeeper. I think you're looking at a new number 9. Not that in terms of we need someone to replace Calvin. I'm not saying that. I just think we need to go, like we were trying to do in January with Strand Larson, and go into the market and get someone again of that ilk. That's what I would be doing. Again, not that we need to replace Calvert-Lewin. He's had a fantastic season. I won't want to replace him. I just think, like we talked about with trying to put in a player that can maybe compete with Calvert-Lewin, I think that's perfect. And then obviously Nemetri's your third choice striker, especially with his injury record. I think that works well. So that's what I'd be doing. Then I think you're probably looking at another centre-back at the football club. Again, something that we've talked about in the January transfer window. Again, this is probably going to be a repetitive theme. Then I think a backup left-back's an obvious another option, because at the moment we've got base Goodmanson, and that's about it. We've played Justin there, but truthfully it's been Goodmanson, hasn't it? And then I think Buonanotte leaves the football club, so I think you've got to look in the market. Maybe it's Harry Wilson, someone of that ilk, who can provide a creative spark to this Leeds United team, and we can help the team in that way as well. And then I think if you get all them positions in line, I do think then we're heading towards a much better season next season. And we've always said this, underlying this season. I think that's why I'm so pleased as to where we're at as a football club at this moment, because I always felt this season was going to be unbelievably hard. With the money we had in the summer, naturally, in comparison to teams in the Premier League and squads already, I thought it was going to be difficult to breach that gap. And I still think it has been at times, but we've shown a fantastic level of composure, fantastic level of team spirit, great management from Daniel Farke, which has created this environment that's meant that we should now, from this position, we should now stay in the Premier League, which will be fantastic, because I do genuinely think if we can stay up this season, and we've said it and said it and said it, then Leeds United are on the right path to having a long-term stay this time in the Premier League, and we shouldn't then get relegated. And next season, if we're in a relegation battle, we can look at the board, and I think we can look at the management and go, this hasn't been good enough, because that squad shouldn't be anywhere near relegation. Not that we should be finishing in the top 6. No, I'm not saying that, but we should have then. Imagine if you have this team right now and you threw another 100 million at it. Well, that team should be then good enough to compete at the top level in a good way. And I do think as well, I think last summer it was quite obvious that we had problems in terms of attracting players. We know we went for a lot of players and that we missed out on them. Well, next summer we're much more established in the Premier League, and them big targets like your Pajals of the world, I think you're much more closer to getting them sort of deals over the line, which I do think could take Leeds United to the next level. Because I do think our recruitment, to be honest, has been really good. But it was just a case that we've missed out on some targets because, truthfully, they just don't want to come to the football club. We saw them all the time. We know we're all over El Canoes. We knew we were all over sort of the likes of Pajau as well, and we just couldn't get them deals to the line because they found more attractive offers elsewhere. Gibson White says, sounds like a broken record, but a new keeper is a must. Yeah, it is. That's another position. A new keeper has to happen, doesn't it? Gibson White. It just has. There's no excuse for not another keeper coming in. We've always said the only way that doesn't happen is if Perry comes back into the team and does really well, but I don't think that's going to happen, and I wouldn't want that myself. I would want to stick with Carl Dow at this point, and I think his performance at the weekend probably proved that as well. So yeah, look, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But as I said, if you get all them positions sorted, we have got the makeup of a really good team then, and that's what's so exciting. And I always say, if you can stay up 1 year, you're never that far off Europe. It doesn't take that many seasons of good recruitment and good improvements to get yourself into Europe. It really doesn't. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I think next season, it just not being in a relegation battle would be a definite positive. And I think we can definitely achieve that as well. But of course, we should be able to score more goals, hopefully concede less, hopefully dominate games more, hopefully not concede as many late goals as well. So yeah, I do think we're in a really good position now, and I do think the future is looking bright. I do. Anyway, I'm going to leave the show there, everybody. Thanks all for watching, as always. and I will see you tomorrow to talk more about Leeds United news. What do we all know what score in the Everton game is? Should we have a quick look? Is it still 0-0? Yeah, still 0-0. Anyway, thanks all for watching. As always, as I said, I'll see you tomorrow. If you could drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help the channel. And as I said, other than that, I will see you tomorrow, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now.